Hey, Mark and Alex, how you guys doing today?
Doing great, Joe.
Doing well, thank you.
Great. I'm pumped to have you guys on this conversation, and I appreciate Sportico for setting it up, obviously. So you guys come from kind of similar backgrounds, but very different, right? Alex, you played 20 years in professional baseball, and Mark, you have built some super impressive entrepreneurship ventures in e-commerce. So I'm curious, how did you two meet, and how has that relationship blossomed over time to form a partnership like you guys have done?
Yeah, so maybe I'll start, Mark. We were introduced by a mutual friend, and in the process of trying to acquire the Mets. And in that process, very quickly, we kind of just lined up. We lined up on our mission, on our values, and really respected what Mark built from the ground up. We have similar backgrounds. We're both from New York, both have strong mothers. We both have 2 daughters, and we both kind of love the game, right? And I look at him as a former track athlete and me being a former Major League Baseball player. A lot of the same values that I put into my career, it seemed like he put into his career. So we hit it off, and in a very short time, we've built an incredible friendship and trust, and really excited and proud to be Mark's partner.
Great, yeah, and you alluded to it there a little bit, but you guys have obviously now you've taken an ownership stake in the Minnesota Timberwolves, and you will be controlling partners here in a couple of years. You've looked at other sports leagues and teams and stuff like that from an investment perspective. Either Mark or Alex, one of you, why did you guys settle on the NBA specifically, and more specifically the Minnesota Timberwolves?
Yeah, I think first of all, the NBA, we felt like it has a lot more upside and potential. It's a much more progressive league. We like the idea that there was also a WNBA team as part of the Timberwolves as well, so as men and women's. We definitely hit it off with Glenn upon first meeting and realized that we shared a lot of the same values. And I think we have been able to connect well with the people in Minnesota. I think it suits us well. I also think that the league has a lot of upside and a lot of tailwinds right now compared to the other leagues. It's a much younger demographic. Adam Silver has done an amazing job, and I think we'll continue to do so. And we're just really proud and happy to be part of the league.
Was this a childhood dream for you, Mark? Was this something that you've always kind of dreamed would happen? Maybe not ever necessarily considered that you might end up doing it, but something that you've always aspired to hold?
It definitely wasn't something I aspired to. It wasn't a goal. It was literally a childhood dream. I grew up in Staten Island, New York, until 5th grade, and had no money growing up, and like all my friends, we played sports every single day out in the street, stick ball and everything else, flag football, and always dreamed of being a professional athlete. And that quickly, that very, very quickly was not a possibility for me. And then, like many kids, it sort of switches to, well, if I'm not going to be a professional athlete, then I'll just be an owner one day, but it wasn't something like I aspired to it, like I'm going to work and one day I'm going to do it. It was just a childhood fantasy, but certainly, was something that only until very recently could be a goal or reality for me.
Yeah, and Alex, for you, there's been very few, I don't know how many off the top of my head, but very few players that have had such a successful career, both on the field and off the field, that they've been able to hold a majority ownership stake in a sports franchise of one of the major leagues. So what's that feeling like for you? Is this something that you thought of when you were playing that might be possible? Or is this something that as you kind of moved into the business side of your career that you really started seeing a possibility in?
Yeah, I mean, Joe, that's a tough one because as a kid, growing up from a single mother from very humble beginnings, you first start thinking, yeah, well, sure, we all have dreams, right? But we all dream to be Major League Baseball players or football or NBA. But my real goal was to earn a college scholarship because I knew my mother couldn't afford it. And then you start thinking about, big dreams about, can I be a Major League Baseball player? Would it be great to own a team? They both seems like Hail Mary at the time. Like, yeah, sure, we can all say it, but we're really not going to own a team, and we're probably not going to be in the major leagues. And, for me, I'm lucky enough that I played for almost 25 years and, started my business close to 25 years ago at the same time, parallel to my baseball career. And the reason that I was inspired to start my business career was I never wanted to end up as the 30 for 30, like a broke athlete. And I had this great fear. And for whatever reason, I always thought about, what's going to happen after baseball, probably like my rookie year. So those thoughts were kind of strange and weird, but, they paid off really well. And I think from an ownership point of view, Marc and I own about, maybe half a dozen businesses together, aside from the Timberwolves. And I would never get into an investment like this without a partner like Marc, because I really think that we have complementary set of skills. And I think together we become a really, really good team. And I think I'm excited to put our experience and our set of skills to work to bring hopefully a lot of value and a lot of joy for the people of Minnesota and the fans.
Yeah, I think just to add on what Alex said there, I think we do complement each other incredibly well. And I couldn't imagine doing this alone without Alex. I mean, to have one of the all-time greats in a sport as an owner to mentor and for somebody in their early 20s to look up to and learn from is incredible. Is an incredible advantage I think we have. There's not too many owners of teams that could say that they were an all-time great, so I think that's a big advantage.
Yeah, and so I'm curious, kind of digging into now the actual process of you guys taking over the team, right? So one of the owners who I've gotten to read more about and gotten to know more over the last couple of years is Ryan Smith, who owns the Utah Jazz. He purchased the team last year, and aside from he's done some really great things from a philanthropy standpoint, but one of the stories that I heard about Ryan, which I thought was really funny, was most people think when you purchase a team, you're doing all of this, extremely real aggressive due diligence and all this stuff. Ryan said when he met with the ownership group, he said, they asked what his offer was for the team, and he essentially said, this is what the valuation says on a website like Sportico. This is what I'll pay. How was the process for you guys? Was it much more detailed or was it similar? If you could talk through that for a little bit.
Alex.
I mean, I'll give you the headline, which is pretty similar to Ryan, right?
Except it was the other way around.
Yeah, it was the other way around, but it probably took 4 or 5 days. It was kind of back of the envelope. And, one of the things I learned from Marc is if you get the macro right, we're not going to sweat the small things. And I think Glenn was energized by, I think, our approach. And, we said what we're going to do, did what we're going to say, and we kind of moved on fairly quickly. And Marc, that was my recollection.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. I think
sometimes the best strategy for negotiation is to not negotiate at all. And I think the best negotiators know when not to negotiate. And I think Alex recognized that this was an incredible opportunity, and Glenn was being very fair with what he wanted, and we just accepted it. So I mean, we could have negotiated. If anybody sort of puts out an offer, you say, oh well, that's what they want. Clearly, there's room to negotiate. And I think that's where people get it wrong. Like, it was a very fair deal. Glenn said, I don't want to negotiate. This is what I want. And we basically said, that seems fair, Glenn. We connected again on the values front and felt like, there was trust, mutual trust. Deal was fair. Everything was very transparent. And the rest is history.
So Alex and Marc, I don't think either of you, correct me if I'm wrong, but live in Minnesota full time now or did previously. So I think one of the things that fans are a little curious about, and myself, is like, how much should we expect over the next few years? Like, are we going to see you guys at games a lot? Are we going to see you guys traveling to the arena? Are we going to see what level of involvement will we see from both of you in the franchise?
I think very much involved. I mean, I think both Marc and I, this is the largest investment we've ever made to this point, and probably it's going to continue to be for the rest of our business career. So we're very invested, both financially, emotionally. We're completely aligned with our mind and our spirit. I know that I got there today at 7:30 in the morning. I was working out with Kat. He embarrassed me in the gym, so I hope he can take it on. Have a great game tonight. And then Marc and I spent 3 or 4 hours in meeting with our executive team on going over mission and values and kind of this long-term vision and plan. And the more and more we think about it as we kind of move forward, we're going to be spending more time here. Eventually, we'll buy a place here, both of us. And he's in a house, I'm in a house, we're both renting, and except get another win.
So Marc, I talked about it a little bit earlier, but you obviously have some extensive experience on the e-commerce side. You've built up some impressive companies. You led Walmart's e-commerce division for the last few years, and now you're obviously taking a controlling stake in the Timberwolves. And Alex, you have a unique perspective also coming from the athlete side and knowing what they experience as playing for teams and what they expect out of ownership. So maybe we'll start with Marc. But Marc, what do you think that unique experience on the e-commerce side or your ventures in business can lend to success with the Timberwolves?
Yeah, it's more less about, I think, e-commerce and more just about startups in general. So I have started, was a CEO, founder of 6 startups now, a few of them multi-billion-dollar range. And I think with each startup, sort of the playbook gets a little bit more refined. And I've sort of put it into a framework I call VCP, Vision, Capital, People. And I think if you get all 3 of those right, magical things happen. And that's one of the things we're going through now with the Timberwolves, is to try to apply that same framework to say, okay, on the vision side of things, what is the 10 to 20-year vision? Very specifically, what do we want to become? What are the success metrics? What's the strategy, high level, to get there? What are the tactics and metrics behind each of the strategies? What's the organizational structure to support it? That's on the vision side. What's the capital plan? What's the 10-year financials? How are we going to finance it? What's the return on capital? And then on the P side, people, how do we go out and hire the very best people in the world, keep them motivated, retain them? It starts with culture. So we're working through what are our values? How are we going to live them like no other team? What's our mission? What's the incentive plan? What are the behaviors and traits that we look for in people that we want to be in this organization? And so getting all that foundational work done up front and then communicated to the org and then even externally to the right groups, fans, reporters, agents, the community even, and to get everybody on board with the foundation and the plan we have in place. And then from there, we just start executing and then evaluate and judge on performance against how well we're doing against those metrics that we put out. And to date, I'm not aware of many teams that have really laid this out so clearly. So we're spending a lot of time, already put in, more than 100 hours, me and Alex, on this phone work, and we feel like it's at least it's worked well in startup land. We'll see how it plays out here.
Yeah, and Alex, over to you. What do you think your experience as a player can benefit you as an owner now, right? Like, you've been on the other side of this, where you've been not only on negotiations and contracts and everything like that, but what players expect, right? What they want the locker room to look like, what they want the pregame meals to be, all of that kind of stuff. What kind of experience can you take from your time as a player?
Yeah, I think understanding that players are great assets, not for just 82 games or 162 in baseball, but 365, 24/7. They're your biggest partners, right? I mean, we're outlaying incredible salaries. They bring more value than anybody else in the organization, and really treat them as partners. And I think that's something that Marc and I are really looking to do. Players have a lot of incredible things to say. They're really smart. And I think it's foolish not to hear them out and see what they're thinking about. They're in the front lines doing the hard work, and really treating them like assets, both on and off the court. I think it's something really that Marc and I are really excited about. And then really, when you think about marrying, another reason why I think Marc and I are great partners is marrying the tech and analytics to the things that happen in the clubhouse, right? The locker room, which is character, basketball IQ, passion, gratitude, humility. And if you can get those things right and you marry them, you can build a championship team and a championship culture that can be some type of a dynasty. And sometimes dynasty is not just winning championships every single year, but it's competing for a championship every single year for decades, right? And that's what you've seen with Jerry Jones and Robert Kraft and some of what the great owners have done over time. I think combining my set of skills and my history and what Marc has done and putting them together, I think makes a pretty good combination.
Yeah, and as someone you've obviously done an extremely good job transitioning, as you mentioned before. We were scared back in the day, right, of like the 30 for 30s going broke, and that was kind of the thought process that was thrown at everyone, was that athletes didn't know how to manage their money, right? Like whether it was true or not, to some degree, the ones that were negatively impacted were put out. And you've done a terrific job, in my opinion, at least, of transitioning into the business world, right? You have A-Rod Corp, which does real estate, it does venture investing, all of this kind of stuff. So have you seen that change over time, right? Because from my perspective, it seems like every day now we're seeing athletes turn down cash endorsement deals and say, hey, I want equity in a business, or I would like some more upside on the venture side, or maybe I want to make an investment myself. Have you seen, kind of as you transition from a player to a businessman now, but you're still involved with players, you're around players all the time, have you seen that shift change, or is that just kind of a feeling that maybe some other people are noticing?
I think the shift has happened. I think there's more awareness, but we're still in the early innings of what the potential really is, right? And I think this is something that we all bear responsibility in, players, former players, owners, commissioner's office, and players union, right? I mean, if you think about the hundreds of or billions of dollars that have been created over the last just 10 or 15 years in professional ownership, and the thousands and thousands of athletes that have become millionaires because of football, basketball, baseball, soccer, there comes a responsibility with that. And how do we get the commissioner's office, the owners, and the players to work together and align in creating, long-term protection of wealth and grow it, compound it over time? And I think we've done a fair job, but I think there's a lot of room for growth there, because these players are making so much capital and they're so young that if you get that part right, it'll be incredible. The ripple effect that you can not only do for the players, their families, but those communities they live in.
Yeah, you can. The way I think about it is, not only can you change generations, right, but you can impact communities that you came from and really make substantial change. So that's great to hear. I guess my other question too would be, like, let's talk long-term vision, right, for a second, of not only the Timberwolves but the Lynx. One of the reasons why myself and other people are so excited about the NBA in general is they're obviously a sports league and a sports franchise that you guys are acquiring. And those are premium, scarce assets that historically have appreciated over time. So there's substantial growth from the equity standpoint and capital appreciation. But also there's a bunch of tailwinds coming now, right? So there's growing media rights, not only in the NBA, but various other sports leagues. There's sports betting, which is gaining market share, not only from a state perspective, but a dollar perspective here in the US, and a bunch of other kind of things that are assisting the growth of these leagues. So if we were to look, 5, 10, 15 years down the road, what are some of the things that you guys would not only be excited about, but see as main focal points of the vision of growing, these organizations within this community?
Yeah. I think, Joe, when we look at these platforms, you look at what the Harris Blitzer Group have done, what Jerry Jones has done, what Robert Kraft have done. There's so many great examples, what the Raiders have done. These are some incredible sports entertainment media platforms. They're not just sports team like they used to be 30 or 40 years ago. And there's like an octopus of opportunities that can be created by owning these franchises. Ultimately, we're there to bring tremendous value and impact to our biggest shareholders, right, which are fans. And I think through sports and entertainment, you bring people together. You can, make dreams come true. I know that Marc and I were sitting there, and I felt like I had like 15 of our sons out there going out and playing. I was more nervous watching our Timberwolves than I was for my 25-year baseball career. I'm like, this is not supposed to happen. And Marc and I are looking at each other. We're like kids out there. And we're like, what's going to happen? We're like counting on the clock. Marc's giving me all these math numbers that I don't understand. And I'm telling you, look at the way they're moving. And it's an exciting time. And I know that Marc and I are really having a great time. But I do think there's incredible opportunity all around. And also really important for us that there's an opportunity to give back to the community. Minneapolis is such an incredible place, and it's been through a lot of hard times. And through sports, we have an opportunity to bring people together and redevelop what is really a great community. On a side note, I've been investing in real estate over 20 years in Minneapolis. Over the last 30 days, we've closed in about 600 apartment units, and we will continue to invest into the community, not only in sports, but in real estate, but also in giving back and helping rebuild this community.
So Mark, it sounds like you may be the analytical guy in the relationship here.
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
That's great.
I definitely numbers, and I grew up, you know, with the stats background and finance background, and I love math and numbers and analytics. But one of the things that I've come to appreciate so much is that analytics numbers only tell part of the story, and you need to couple that with the softer side, and to get to the right answer. And that's where I think Alex and I complement each other really well. Alex is, you know, nobody's better than Alex in terms of like getting to the softer stuff and where there's more art than science. Like he's lived it for a long time at the highest level. And so when we have a discussion, and you know, one, we can both appreciate each other's point of view, but we come at it from a slightly different vantage point. And when we put it together and get it right and agree, I think we get to a really powerful answer together.
Yeah, Joe, just to add one more thing to that. I mean, being in professional sports, in my experience, one of the things I've known is that there's some organizations that really get the analytics right. And there's some organizations that really get the softer side, the character, the stuff we were talking about. Very rarely do you have organizations that get them both right. And when they do, you get San Antonio Spurs, you get Golden State, you get the Lakers, you get the Yankees and Red Sox. And that's really the magic part. So coming at it from both sides, I think is really helpful for us.
Yeah, and what has maybe we'll go to Mark on this one. What has your first impressions been of Minneapolis since getting there? Have you been there before, or is this your first time traveling there and spending time there?
Yeah, I've been here a few times now, and every time I learn something new. I think what really resonates with me is the people. The people seem to be really good and have good values, just generally. You know, I grew up in New York, living in New York, and there's something special about the people that I've met in Minnesota so far. And I'm just excited about being here. And as Alex said, you know, giving back to the community and doing more and being as helpful as we can. And so I think both Alex and I plan to really immerse ourselves more and get involved more and more with each trip out here, and look forward to that.
Yeah, and Alex, one of the things, so Glenn Taylor has obviously, it's been well noted, he's put the team, or at least inquired about sales for a few times now, and you guys took advantage of that over the last year. But there's going to be a transition of ownership now. And I think at first people thought of that as kind of delaying the inevitable of what's going to be happening. But it sounds like to me, you guys are actually excited about this opportunity and excited about the ability for him to help ease this transition. Can you just walk me through kind of how you expect the next couple of years to go between, you know, being limited partners and then being controlling partners, and how you expect Glenn to help with that?
Well, I can tell you this, that our this process has been, you know, seamless. I mean, everything that Glenn has said he's done, if not more, he's actually overperformed. You know, sometimes that's not the case, right? And partnerships sometimes can be complicated. But from the minute we met with Glenn, both Mark and I visited his house in Naples. It's been a really enjoyable process. And I got to tell you, Mark and I are both very humble and grateful to have an opportunity to learn from Glenn, who's been in the league almost 30 years. He served in almost every committee with Adam Silver, and been very close with David Stern back in the day. And I think for us to get this 2 years, almost like we're going to business school on the MBA, is something that is not only great, but necessary. I think if most owners can have a 2-year window or 3-year window before they take, I actually think is a really, could be a best practice in the future, because nobody, no matter how smart you are, what business you run, first of all, anyone who's owning these teams is very busy with their everyday job. And there's so much to learn in such little time. I think this is an ideal situation for us.
Gotcha. It sounds like you agree, Mark.
Oh, absolutely. Alex said it right, under promise and over deliver. And Glenn and Becky have done that ever since the first meeting we had together. And it's been a great experience. And we're learning a ton every day, and it's giving us time to meet the team, not rush anything, and build that foundation, as I said before, which typically takes anywhere between 6 to 12 months to have the foundation set. and then, another 6 to 12 months to sort of hire the right people and build the right org. And so it's a great on-ramp. And as Glenn said, how's it feel to be thrown into the deep end of the pool? And my response was, actually, Glenn, you've thrown us into the shallow end. Like we're actually like perfectly fine as long as you're still here and making the decisions and teaching us. We can learn to swim in the shallow end and then go to the deep end in 2 years when we assume control of the team. So.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those things where no matter how good you are in the arena that you came from, it's always new experiences and new things to learn with a new business and a new industry. So I see that as a positive, and I thought it was interesting that you guys are kind of being the pioneers behind that. So that's great. Part of this deal also is the WNBA team, the Lynx, right? And from a pure equity value standpoint, the NBA team, the Timberwolves, are the crown jewel, right? But the Lynx are included in this. It's a growing league. Their viewership numbers have grown tremendously year over year. A lot more television time is being placed on the league, and the sponsorship value is growing for each team each year. How big of a part of the deal was that team being included? Was it something you guys seeked out, or was it something that you guys were happy to get included?
Yeah, I'll take that. Yeah, no, it was something that we were very happy that was
in a secondary market. Obviously, Marc Lasry and Wes Edens proved all of us wrong there. And I think the same can be told about a market like Minnesota that's actually stronger than people think. It's a very strong corporate market. It's got a very smart, loyal fan base. And the Lynx have shown us that if you build it, they will come. You can actually win, more than one championship if you do it the right way.
And there's an incredible upside in the league, as you said. And Alex and I have talked a lot about how can we invest and get others to invest even more in that league, because it is a little bit of a circular argument. I think it does need investment in order to continue to grow.
Yeah, and on the other side of that, which is partly how I think about the real estate, right? And there's been some talk about whether there might be a new arena or there might not be a new arena or renovations or something of that nature. How much value do you guys put on, investing in the infrastructure of the franchise and the team relative to just the player side and the people side?
I mean, first of all, we have to have a long-term orientation. Alex and I are young, and we both plan on having the team. Hopefully will be around for the next 50 years. And then we both have 2 daughters, as he said. So, I mean, this could be a 100-year sort of plan. And when you have that sort of time horizon, you can think about things differently. You make the right long-term decisions. Certainly investing for the future is going to be paramount. And we're going through that plan right now. What is the vision? What do we want to be? How do we get there? And we've got some ambitious goals, and we look forward to sharing them once we've got them nailed down.
I'm curious. Do your daughters understand kind of what's happening? Do they know that? Have they been to any games, or do they understand kind of your guys' new role in the team?
Well, I can tell you that my daughters love ragging on me, and they rag on me on how long baseball is. But actually, and I think Mark's probably the same way, this is probably the first thing they think that is pretty cool that I've done in my career. And they actually are very excited to come watch Timberwolves games, not only here in Minnesota, but on the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Both my daughters are in college in California, near LA and San Francisco. So hopefully get them out to the game on the next road trip out there.
Nice. It's funny how that works, Alex. You win a championship and you play all these years, and going to a basketball game might be the highlight for them.
Exactly.
That's great. All right, guys. Yeah, that's it from my side. Mark and Alex, I really appreciate you guys taking the time to do this, talking sports, business, basketball, Timberwolves, NBA, etc. Really appreciate you guys taking the time. So thanks.
Thank you. Thanks,
Joe. Thank you very much. And maybe next time we do this, we'll do it in person, as you can be our guest and support us at one of the Timberwolves games in Minnesota.
I would love that. That'd be fantastic.
You bet.
Well, it's my turn again, and thank you very much to Joe Pompliano for pinch hitting, and our thanks to A-Rod and Mark Lore. We do appreciate it. That'll bring the end of this Sportico Live. We do endeavor to do 2 things here. That is educate and entertain. So we hope we accomplish those 2 things. And if you liked what you saw, please remember to subscribe to Sportico. Thank you to our two sponsors, Goldman Sachs and O'Melveny. Chuck Baker was my partner on the interview with Todd Bowley. We do appreciate that. And join us next when Sportico Live takes a look at the business of licensing. That's November 18th. Please join us, and thanks again.